Robbo, just give us your overall thoughts if you could.
I think the scoreline reflected the game, and that's me being honest. I think, look, it's very easy to complicate stuff, but we just didn't seem to have the energy that we had last week. We didn't seem to play with the same energy, but I don't think we play with the same energy. Look, I think Wakefield put us in that position. I think Wakefield won the physical battle. It doesn't matter what you play in rugby league, when you win the physical battle, both with the ball and without the ball, it makes it very, very difficult. I just thought from the opening part of the game, and I spoke to them at half time about this, I just feel like the amount of offloads they got, the little bit of offload, just poking the nose through, were just way too wide around the ruck. I spoke to them at half time about getting a little bit tighter, but inevitably you get loose around the ruck when you lose the physical battle, when you lose the ruck. And I just felt like, yeah, they won that physical battle and they managed to build momentum with the ball and put us on the back foot. I bet if you look at the stats will show you that they made more metres than us, they had more quicker play the balls than us. And inevitably, I think they got, I thought there were a couple of tough calls right at the beginning of the game that put us on the back foot. Don't think young Marshall knocked the ball down, they got 6 again. I don't think we held them down a couple of times, and they give another, give a penalty. But inevitably, when you're losing the ruck and you're a little bit loose, those calls go against you. So I thought that's the way we started the game. That's what I was so disappointed about. And look, with the ball, when you're on the back foot, when you're coming off your own 10, it's very, very difficult to then build momentum. And for we had an inexperienced spine out there, but we didn't do him any favours by the starting positions that we had, because we defensively, I think, we were so loose. And then with the ball in that second half, we showed some naivety. We tried to shift the ball on the second tackle, went into touch. We threw a forward pass on the first tackle from the scrum. I think the weight of possession showed. They've got some really big middles, but that can be good for you. If you starve them of possession, put them on the back foot, you can take advantage of that. But when you give them the ball on first and second tackle, then it's going to hurt you, and that's what it did.
Marshall Landman, just the latest teenage debutant this year, he had some good involvements, didn't he, today? What's your sort of overview of what it meant to him and how he got on?
Look, I think we've had 5-6 debuts this year. We're probably young lads where they wasn't expected to make the debut, but the circumstances we've been put under have made the debut. And looking long term for the club's future, it's great. It's great. I'd like to have given him a little bit more protection today. I thought he stood up really well for an 18-year-old to play half-back in a team that's coming off their own line over and over again, which is on the back foot defensively, so you're isolated a little bit more. He got exposed a little bit by Lino every now and again, but that was no fault of his own. And I thought he stood up, and I thought it probably showed his toughness, really. Because although he's only young, he's only lean, he's got a little bit of time to put some muscle mass on and get some weight behind him. I thought he were tough in everything he did. And even though he were under some real sort of tricky situations, where he were isolated a little bit with the back rower, and Lino's getting to him and doubling up on him, I thought he showed up really well. I thought he's one for the future. But yeah, it'd have been a little bit nicer for him to be on the front foot, for them to be on the back foot, him attacking, and we have a little bit more ball. Because as an half-back, I've been in his position before. I were at Castleford on loan myself, and when they were under the pump, and it's difficult when you're on the back foot and not on the front foot. But I thought from him as an individual, I thought he was really good.
I know you'll probably crunch the stats and watch the game back a few times, but when you mentioned the lack of energy at times, is the potential that maybe the season just catching up a little bit with Huddersfield, given what's happened so far this season, the lack of numbers at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit. Look, I suppose Liam Finn said pretty much the same thing then, the assistant coach. He says, we're asking the same of the same players. It's the same group of players that are being asked, to perform, and it's not been a case of rolling around and resting players and giving players an opportunity to have a little bit of a break. It's been the same group of players that have been performing, and we have probably had a little bit of had that little bit of yo-yo throughout the season where we've been up and down, and like I say, over the last 8 games previous to this, I think, you know, we've had some really good games, we've had some off games as well. So yeah, I don't think it's the group of players that we've got in there are not ones that they won't throw the towel in. That's not the group we've got. That's definitely not the group we've got. Are they a group that can continually, you know, are they quite young and experienced within that? And I'm asking the same players to do the job each and every week, then yeah, it's difficult to stay up there each and every week. But, you know, one thing we have been really good at this year is, you know, when we have had down moments, there's been a bit of a fight back and a bit of an upturn. So I'm hoping that we get that in this Leeds fixture, because it's going to come around quick. We play Thursday night, so we don't have much time to lick his wounds. We know we need to jump straight back on the horse and come back fighting.
Just lastly from me, the sin bins obviously don't help in a game like this. You probably played better the first time you were down to 12. Have you got any complaint over either of them?
Oh look, no. The way the game's going, look, I felt like he was slipping. It was a yellow card from. Look, Tani does swing the arm, does go in, but he's falling. He's falling. But when you make contact with the head, inevitably in the modern game, it is a sin bin. And I thought, yeah, he's right. I do think there were factors around why it was a yellow and not a red, and surely, you know, you'd like to think they're going to look into that and go, it was pretty low to the ground. And Zach's, look, he's a real tricky one, Zach. He does lift him, he does sort of go above horizontal. I don't think it's a tip tackle on his actual head and neck, but he probably, because he does go go above horizontal, I think it is a yellow card. So, you know, hopefully the judiciary will look at that and go, you know what, there is factors of why they both are yellows and not reds, and probably look at them and go, yeah, they probably should be good to play next week. You know, there's some calls that went against us in the first half that I'm probably more a bit perturbed about than them calls, if I'm honest. I think the momentum shifted against us when we got some calls, but yeah.
Cheers, Robert. Are you able to refresh the squad much for next week?
No. That's me being honest. Look, there's been a family bereavement with one player. I'm not going to say who it is just yet, but there might be a player out there that he might not be able to play because there's a funeral occurring. George King, his wife gave birth this week and didn't play, so he's one potential player that could come back into the side, but there won't be. There's not many other players that are fully fit and available to just come out, senior players, should I say. You know, we've got a load of young academy kids, but I've got to be very conscious. Look, it's very easy for me now just to go, right, I'm going to throw all the academy lads in. And as everyone knows, I've 5 or 6 debuts we've given this year. I'm an English lad myself. I love giving young English lads time. I've seen, fans have come to me in the past and said, just throw them all out there, but you've got to be very, very careful throwing too many out. You know, back end of the year when you've got a side that's a bit depleted in certain positions anyway. So I don't want it to be lambs to the slaughter. We've got to be smart with how we do it. I want to give as many young lads as opportunities as I can, but we've got to make sure we're smart with it.